So you guys voted for it, and today we're going to be watching AIMBOTCALVIN, probably one of my favorite Mccrees to watch. And if you would like to see any certain player or any certain character for the next video of this series, where I go over, the best things these players are doing and how you can do better with these characters, well, then please do vote in the comment section down below. Either upvote the character that you like, or just comment down below who you want me to talk about and what character they play. Anyways, let's talk about Mccree himself. I feel like Mccree right now is quite a bit better. I feel like he's a more viable choice again. Maybe not as good as Soldier, but he can get a lot of burst, he can get a lot of poke, and he can overall do quite a bit more just because how the meta's changed. And mainly, he doesn't get dived on as much, which was something that he really kind of got hurt with. I feel like he's especially good with Soldier, you can kind of duo those guys. But yeah, he's a really good choice. I feel like another thing that we can't forget about Mccree that is so good about him is that he can actually kill Pharah Mercy. I feel like Soldier can kill him, can kill Pharah Mercy, but mainly only if the Pharah and the Mercy kind of split up for a second. Then, of course, you can kill the Pharah pretty quickly as Soldier. But if it's continuously healing, and especially if Mercy has her ult going on, you really can't weigh too much with Soldier unless you also have like an Ana ult along with your ult. However, with Mccree, you can kill these characters pretty easily. If you can get 2 or 3 headshots, they're going to go down. With that said, of course, you do have to be very good with the character. You do have to be able to get all these headshots, get all this damage out and everything, but the possibility is there, and the clutch factor is definitely there with Mccree. Clutch factor is generally a thing Mccree has a lot over Soldier in my own opinion, and I feel like that can actually win you a ton of solo queue games. While he's maybe not quite as consistent, while he has to play a little bit closer up, and while he has to do, deal with a bit more damage and deal with flankers more, and maybe not, exactly the same as Soldier and isn't as, self-reliant, he can clutch it out a lot more, and he can kill people maybe quite a bit faster if he can get those double headshots. Now, some other stuff that we see about this that's really cool is that while he doesn't hit every single shot, neither do you. A lot of people, I feel like, think that they have to hit every single shot as Mccree to win the game. They have to hit every single one point on, otherwise they're terrible Mccree. That's definitely not true. Over and over, we've seen him miss a few shots. He probably only has around a 60-70% accuracy, but as long as you're taking every shot that you can try to go for, and as long as you're trying to get every body shot, every neck shot really, and every headshot that you think that you can get, then go for that. It'll make your overall damage a lot better, and even if you're getting a lot less accuracy, it doesn't really matter. Your accuracy is essentially a meaningless stat. I feel like it's more important to just get effective kills and throw out a ton of damage. As far as his crosshair, I also want to talk about that. It's a little bit invisible right now, but it's not actually a dot. It's like a really weird mini crosshair with a hole in it. I started to use this myself, and I feel like it's a lot easier to actually line up headshots and mainly line up like neck shots, which kind of is headshots, so that's pretty nice. Some other stuff I want to talk about, I guess, is that when an enemy is stuck in CC, as we saw way at the beginning of the game versus Zarya, and you want to try to burst the person as fast as possible, it's actually faster to burst people with your Fan the Hammer than with going for headshots. So do try to go for that. And of course, if you aren't trying to, get picks and you're just, standing around doing nothing, please do spam Reinhardt shields just like a Soldier would. That's pretty easy. Of course, as well, do target the Mercy first, as Mercy is completely busted right now in a lot of cases, and just a very good character to play. So for your positioning on offense, I felt like it should be behind your tanks, but not really that far behind. Pretty close, not nearly as far as Soldier, and overall you should kind of stay closer to your tanks than focus on high ground. While getting high ground next to your tank is good, if there isn't any right there, I feel like it's better to be next to your tanks and just kind of go along with them and protect them from a lot of the flankers, from a lot of the damage, and, get a lot of picks when people are trying to walk up next to the tanks, especially versus people like Tracer, Genji, or Reaper. As far as defense, though, which we're on right now, and which we have been on for a while because the offense went so quick, I feel like you should be able to, again, defend your tanks. You want to stay really close to them, at least on choke points like this. Maybe not, in front of them, but quite close. As you see, we're almost touching them over and over and over again. Because your Fan the Hammer, your flashbangs, I feel like there's a lot more important to use for your tanks to protect them than going for a height advantage. Especially, again, if the height advantage, for example, on this map, is way off in the back to the right or the left, it's better to be able to play up with your tanks, get out a lot of your damage, be healed up by your supports. It does depend on the map a lot. Dorado, you might want to stay a little bit further up on the high ground, but as long as you can stay kind of close to your tanks, while also being able to, play defensively and protect them, and being able to get a few kills, that's kind of where you want to position. Not super far back like where Soldier does. A little bit closer up, at least from, what AIMBOTCALVIN likes to do. Some people like to be a bit further, but not always. Something else I want to say is that while alt-fire isn't as much damage as headshots always, it does let you do one thing that I feel like is very important that we see quite often with Calvin. He uses alt-fire a little bit more than I usually see it used. That is, Fan the Hammer. He actually uses it to get his damage out fast and then run away. That's the thing that you kind of do have to remember. If you're using your primary fire and trying to get all those shots as headshots, you will do overall more damage per clip. However, it also takes a lot longer time, and a lot of the time you might just want to start running away as you're damaging the enemy tanks, as you're trying to get behind your own. That's a thing you might want to think about. Right here we see something that's pretty nice. You know, he walks on high ground, stays really far away from his tanks, but this was for a purpose. That was to try to get an ult. That's where I feel like, you know, for the most part, that's when you want to try to get to the high ground. That's when you want to try to get up there, to either ult, or I guess to just try to pick off flankers that are always going the same way around the back. That can be pretty good, as far as that goes. As far as some other stuff, I guess you could also do is just, you know, stand kind of on the high ground, like let's say on this part of the map, to block off flankers. As we know, flankers have to either come from the right or the left or behind, and with this position, we can essentially defend our team from any of those places. As far as Mccree, a lot of the time I feel like what's good about him is that if you have good positioning and pretty good aim, you can do quite well. While his ultimate isn't that important, and while it can, you know, sometimes team wipe, most of the time it's for 1 or 2 picks, but you know, Mccree can actually deal a ton of damage. He can block a lot of people from coming in, and you know, you really just kind of have to learn where to position him. I'm hoping that this is helping at least a little bit. You should just look at where you are and generally keep in mind that you want to be close enough that you can protect from flankers, but far enough away that you won't get one shot from, like, let's say a Junkrat mine. That's, I guess, generally where you want to be. Now, if flashbang isn't up, as I think we're going to see right here, or I guess if your shift isn't up or anything, or if you just see somebody around the corner, you might want to wait for it to come up and then go in and try to kill them. The problem with Mccree is that often it's kind of hard to actually kill a lot of the other snipers. The other snipers do kind of kill you really quickly, and they can one-shot you while you can only two-shot them if your abilities are down. We see this a lot later. He's trying to fight a Hanzo, and he just keeps dying to him again and again because Hanzo walks around the corner, shoots, and Mccree can get one shot while Hanzo can kill him in one shot. So you do have to remember that really you shouldn't be trying to fight snipers unless either your abilities are up or you're pushing up with your team and there's a tank right next to you. Both those can work pretty easily. Now, if flashbang isn't up as well, something you might want to do is that, you know, if flashbang isn't up, just go for headshots on the enemies, go for just primary fire, and don't fan the hammer. Sometimes I see people trying to, like, kill, let's say, a Zenyatta or, you know, somebody like a Genji, trying to fan the hammer them at, you know, pretty close range, but without flashbang up. The problem with this is that often you won't hit enough shots to actually kill them, and you might half damage them, but it doesn't really matter because they aren't really dead. And then you're out of ammo, and then they can just jump on you, and it's really hard from there. Instead, just go for primary fires, try to damage them out the most you can, and wait for flashbang if you do want to try to go for your fan the hammer. That's kind of just what you have to do right there. Right here we see again, though, his position is very good because it's blocking off really just about everyone. We see the Hanzo right there. You're going to see that's going to be a bit of a problem. But I guess one thing that I should talk about that's very good about Mccree in the state that he is right now is the fact that since you have Mercy now, that's so good, that can do so much. It makes so that, well, especially since you can be revived every like 30 seconds, it makes so that if you keep getting picked while playing a little bit more offensively as this character, it's not as bad of a thing as it used to be. Of course, it is still not a good thing, but if you can go 1 for 1, and maybe you get the Mercy of the enemy team while, you know, somebody else kills you, your Mercy can come in, res you, it's going to be a 5v6, you can go in from there, it works pretty well. Yeah, overall, I feel like that's something that you want to keep in mind. Now that, you know, Mercy can kind of make up for some of your aggressiveness and some of the unsafeness, I guess, in Mccree, you can take a little bit more fights, as long as you think that your Mercy does have her E up. You know, if you saw somebody just get rezzed, maybe you shouldn't go for that, but in a lot of cases, you can take a little bit more aggression than you used to be able to. Simply if you have a Mercy. Now, of course, if you don't have a Mercy, you can't, but almost every single game you probably should be able to. Now, as far as, again, probably the best example of how strong Mercy can be is that if your team, you know, is playing really well, you know, your team's all up, they're pushing, they're blocking damage on defense or whatever, if somebody's getting a lot of picks on your team, as you see right here, we get a Hanzo pick on us, we can be rezzed, and then we're safe for a few seconds. We can try to go for an ultimate. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out for us way too well right here. Maybe we should have waited a bit for that. We get picked off again by the Hanzo. Mercy ults, rezzes us again. We're ready to try to fight the Hanzo, miss the E, and I feel like since we missed that, we should have waited in here until our E was back up, but we go in hoping that we can outplay him because Calvin is very good at this character. Unfortunately, does get picked off again though, and you know, we're kind of wondering what's going to happen, but we get rezzed again. We actually, instead of focusing on the Hanzo, shoot all those people in, of course, the Graviton, and you want to remember, the Graviton does essentially make so you have free headshots, and you should always go for the headshots in the Graviton. Maybe not even always ult, if you don't have to ult. You know, I guess if you can, you should, but you don't really have to. And as we saw right there, simply by having Mercy res us 2 or 3 times, you know, we had a lot of focus put on us, we had a lot of damage put on us, and even though, you know, maybe we could have played that a little bit better, still, we got to do a ton, and that's, I think, something we might want to keep in mind. With Mercy, you can play kind of crazy, you can do quite a bit of stuff, and I feel like it does open up and expand the amount of play that you can do as Mccree, and the amount of, I guess, outplays that you can go for with this guy, and you can, again, be a bit more risky. I guess it will take away some of the reses from the rest of your team, but if the rest of your team on defense is playing very defensively, very safely, and not getting picked way too much, and you're trying to, you know, stall them by getting a few more picks, then Mccree might be a better choice than Soldier in that situation. And of course as well, if you have a ton of people trying to flank around, I'd say Mccree would again be better than Soldier. In this game, for example, I felt like Mccree was a much better choice than Soldier because everybody kept trying to flank around and we could generally deal with a lot of them. They kept switching off their picks, seeing what they could go for. Eventually Hanzo worked pretty well, but we finally figured out how to counter it, how to go against it, and yeah, there we go with Mccree. Overall, I feel like he's a very good character now. His win rate's not the best, and I would say that it does take a lot of time to get even good at him. His skill floor, I think, is like, you know, almost where the skill ceiling of a lot of characters is. Not really, but, you know, it's very hard to play him, and you do need quite good aim. But don't be turned off by the fact that you need great aim. You can play Mccree with pretty half-decent aim, play quite defensive, and maybe not go for as many of these 1v1s. And, you know, get more flashbang kills and stuff like that, hide a little bit more behind your tanks, and do fine with that as well. I would say, though, if you want to try to get better as this guy, do go a bit more offensive. Do take a few more 1v1s. And sometimes do just stupid offensive maneuvers, I guess, to try to practice him, to try to learn how to beat these 1v1s. And then after you learn how to do all that, play, you know, again, a little bit more behind your tanks, as that's the better option, but you won't get trained quite as fast. You have to, you know, kind of think your SR versus how you want to improve the character, put it all between there, and see kind of what you want. Anyways, as always, guys, thank you all for watching. I really love talking about Mccree, probably one of my favorite characters since the game has been released, and I'm finally actually starting to play him a little bit, so hopefully I can talk a bit more about him and talk about, you know, just the cool stuff that he can do, and I guess how you can improve as him as well. If you have any certain character you want me to talk about again in the future, please do tell me, and I'll try to as fast as possible. As always, though, guys, thank you all for watching, hope you enjoyed, and have a wonderful day.